Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd to the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime goddess, the Cat. Cat, how you doing this week?
Ooh, my feet hurt, but other than that, I'm just tired. It's been a week. It's been a couple weeks. It's been a long time. I'm tired.
Yeah, you got that. You got that look in your eye, like you're trying to figure out where to hide a body. Should I be concerned?
No, my coworkers though.
Ain't that always how it goes? All right. Okay, well, we got a lot of fun for you guys this week. This week we're discussing Luke Cage Season 2, the second season of the hit Netflix series that we've been looking forward to, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But, of course, there's procedure to follow, so we're going to begin, as always, with Ask a Geek. So let me dig out some questions here.
Yeah.
Let me get some questions here. Talking like Cartman.
Oh, no, I was thinking Jean-Luc Picard. The line must be drawn here.
Drawn here. We have some questions here. Now I just sound like Bruce Lee trying to do... It's weird, like I try and do an impression of one thing and I sound like this third totally unrelated thing. Okay, let's see here now. Okay, all right, first question here is for you, Kat, and this one is from Riley. And she asked, since you've gotten into Dungeons & Dragons, what is your favorite character type to play?
Ooh, that's really tough because I think in my first ever game I played a fighter, and in my second ever game I played like a cleric, and currently I am playing a ranger in D&D and a barbarian in Pathfinder. And it's really tough because I love playing a barbarian. It's really fun to just smash stuff. But there's a lot of points where I also get really bored because I don't have the right skill set for the type of things that my DM has done. And I sort of blame the DM for that because the DM should be trying to utilize all of our skills. But yeah, there's just points where my barbarian can't do anything, so I get bored. Whereas my ranger, the campaign was built so well, a lot of which just fits my ranger so well. So I've got to say, I think I love playing my ranger more. If for no other reason, then also rangers get favored terrain and they learn additional languages and favored enemies and stuff like that. It's really fun. But I was thinking about playing sometime in the future. I'd like to play a very, very evil cleric, and I think that could be a lot of fun.
Okay, all right. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna nod and pretend that I understood any of that because I don't play D&D, so I have understand what none of these special rules or anything mean. So, okay, and let's see. Next question here. This one comes from Megan, and she asks both all of us if we've seen the new trailer for Castlevania Season 2 and if we're excited or not. And I will say that yes, I have seen it, and I am cursing time for passing so slowly that it is not already October and I'm not already watching this awesomeness.
That's why I haven't watched the trailer, because one, I know it's going to be a short number of episodes, so I don't want half of the material for the episodes to just be in the trailer. And then yeah, it's so far away. It's not that far away, but it's far enough away that I kind of want to just not get excited about it right now, because I want to get excited about it right before it comes out.
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of in this weird space where it's far away, but not really far away. I don't know. I'm kind of having this thing happen now where as the month is getting to where it's about to change, I start forgetting how close dates actually are. I ordered a thing on eBay the other day, and it was oh, delivery is gonna be on August 4th, and I'm oh god, that's so far away. And I'm wait a minute, today's the 30th. That's Friday. What the hell am I bitching about?
Yeah, it's like that. It's absolutely like that.
It's quit your whining, you baby. You'll have it before the week is out. But yeah, no, I did see the trailer, and I'm really excited, and I can't wait to see what they do with it. And I think, I'm not sure. I kind of have made a little bet with myself, but I'm pretty sure that I saw Grant Dynasty, the third playable character from Castlevania 3 in that trailer. So I'm kind of hoping that was right, and I'm hoping that he's going to be in there, because yeah, he was one of the characters I was disappointed was not in the first 4 episodes. But I mean, considering that was basically the prologue series, I'm not too surprised by that, really, in hindsight. And let me silence my cell phone, which I should have done before the show got started. All right. And let's see here now. And then she's got a second trailer question. She asks if we've seen the new Venom trailer and for our thoughts on that. And have you seen that, Kat?
I haven't. That one kind of fell under my radar, I guess, because I've been really super busy for a while now, and it was just one of those things.
Well, her email is dated for today, so I'm thinking that this is a trailer that just dropped today.
I thought there was one a couple of weeks ago that I didn't watch.
I'm sure. Like, I just randomly stumbled across a new one today as I was flipping through Twitter. I like that it showed a little more of the actual Venom creature. So we got kind of more of an idea of what we're going to see in the film, but at the same time, I feel like it kind of over-relied on the creature. It almost like kind of just let the cat out of the bag. I still don't think that this movie is going to be like a AAA release, but I will admit I'm to the point where I'm willing to give it a fair shot. I was pretty ambivalent about it with the first trailer, particularly with the weird way they pronounce symbiote. We call them symbiotes. No, you need to go back to grammar school, learn how to talk, learn how to English. But this new trailer, all right, it looks watchable at least. So, which is more than can be said of, say, Amazing Spider-Man 2. Because I hated that movie so much.
I really liked it at the time, or I thought it was pretty good at the time, and then I thought about it, and I'm like, oh no, this was awful. Never again.
You ever, maybe we'll make that a random topic. Movies that you thought were great when you first saw them, but then the more you thought about them, you realized that they were actually pretty bad.
That's a lot of things. And I'm very easy to please for films. Like, it doesn't take too much to make me happy. But
I think it's because when you spend $10 to see it in a theater, you kind of subconsciously force yourself to like it so you can justify having spent that amount of money.
Yes.
But then once you see it again on TV and you don't have any skin in the game, you're like, wait a minute, this is awful. All right, and but that's about all the questions that we Ask Geek questions that we have for this week. Thank you, as always, for sending to us. As always, you can send them to us through the email at drgonzo@nerdtothethirdpower.com. We love getting your questions, love reading them on the air, so go ahead and get those questions in, and you just might get yours read and answered on the show. So, and with that, we are going to jump right into our discussion topic, which is Luke Cage Season 2. Which picks up the story after the events of The Defenders, which I still have not yet seen. I really need to go back and play Netflix catch-up at some point. So we're going to go ahead and dive into that and discuss the series. So, Kat, why don't we start with you? What are your first general thoughts on Luke Cage Season 2?
First off, I was really excited for this because I so enjoyed Season 1. And it was one of those things where I was like, damn, isn't this show out yet? So I was really excited for Luke Cage Season 2. The second seasons of the Marvel shows haven't been as strong as the first seasons, I think. So I was like crossing my fingers because this season had a lot to live up to in terms of mostly like what did we love so much about Season 1? The villains. The villains were so good in Season 1. The music was so good in Season 1. And I really felt like the new season had amazing villains, had great music, was just a real treasure to watch. Had some good fights. Not all of them I felt were super great, but it really was very good. I was thrilled to sit down and marathon it all in one day.
All right. Well, like I said, I've got to play Netflix catch up, so I still haven't seen the first season. But I did get a little under halfway through the second season, stopping only because I got a stomach bug that caused it to explode out of every orifice. So trying not to die took priority. But I have enough here that I can contribute to this conversation, and I will say that what I've seen so far, I'm really enjoying. And that surprises me because I never really much cared for Luke Cage as a character in the comics. I didn't dislike him. It was just kind of, I'm a. How can I describe this? I like. He was a chocolate shake when I'm in the mood for a strawberry. If that makes any real sense, it's just not my kind of story. Usually is what his stories are being told. But I've really enjoyed what I've seen in the show so far, and it's definitely I will say the quality of the writing is excellent, and I'm really enjoying how all the characters interact with and bounce off each other, and I'm really loving how everything seems to be getting set up, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how it all pays off. And I'm gonna voice my agreement with Kat. The villains are the real stars of the show, of Luke Cage. So let's kind of just start by breaking this show down into its component parts, starting with the story and plot and script. So, Kat, why don't you give us a brief rundown of season 2 of Luke Cage and what's going on?
Okay, season 2 of Luke Cage involves a lot of right at the beginning we see Luke dealing with fame, because now the people of Harlem know who Luke is. They know he's this superhero kind of black man in a hoodie who's bulletproof. And Luke is resisting the idea of being famous and, making any sort of monetary gain off of his fame. He just wants to have a normal life, and that is just not what's in store for Luke Cage, and it probably never will be, the poor guy. He's recovering from everything that happened in the first season, but Harlem hasn't recovered per se, because the Stokes are still around in the form of what's her name? Mariah Dillard. Thank you. Totally blanked on her name. Mariah Dillard, who was in season 1 and did a lot of shady stuff in season 1, is back with Shades, who has sort of become her boy toy in between seasons. And Mariah wants more power, but she wants clean power. She wants control over Harlem, but she wants it for the better. She wants to make Harlem better, safer. She wants to fulfill this amazing dream that she has. But the way she goes about it is by selling guns and stuff like that. So she's willing to go through some very shady means in order to get true power. And she wants to get all of that to the side so that she can run clean businesses and have a real foothold, because Mama Mabel did some bad stuff and Mariah doesn't want to be quite like Mama Mabel. And Shades is along for the ride. He's sort of, majorly in love with Mariah and believes in what she believes in, and Shades is willing to go as far as Mariah is willing to go at first. So there's a lot of little side story or subplot with them getting into deals in order to sell guns, and some really shady stuff going on, a lot of corporate stuff going on. And a new player comes to town, and he is the Bushmaster. And he's an interesting fellow, because he's another player willing to do a lot of very bad stuff, but all he wants to do is tear down everything the Stokes family built. So Luke Cage spends this season getting caught up in the middle of what is essentially a villain battle. He's caught up in between Bushmaster, who wants to take down Mariah, and Mariah, who is still a really terrible person, but Luke is such a good guy, he's just got to come in and save the day no matter what. And while all this is going on, Luke is still trying to deal with people following him 24/7, people tweeting his location at all times. It puts a huge target on Luke's back for the people who would want to see harm done to him. So there's a lot of really interesting subplots that go along with the main Bushmaster plots. As Bushmaster is, I don't know if I consider him the main villain. I kind of consider him an anti-hero in this case, because he proves to be a match for Luke Cage, which is a pretty tough thing to be. But he has very good reasons to be doing what he's doing. So the main plot involves, Bushmaster trying to take down Mariah, and Luke trying to deal with all the stuff that's come up in his life. And Luke spends a lot of this season, a lot of his internal conflict comes from just being so angry because all of this stuff is not, he doesn't want any of this. This is all sort of thrust upon him. He didn't ask for powers. He didn't ask for responsibility. He just kind of wants to have a normal life, and he can't have that. And it's just a really wonderful arc for Luke of trying to deal with how angry he is about everything, how he pushes people he loves away. And it's really spectacular. And lest we forget Misty. Misty Knight, at the end of the Defenders, had actually lost an arm trying to save the city. And Misty, I would actually argue, has a better storyline of wanting to be a cop and continue to do what she's good at and what she loves, while also now living with a disability and having people treat her differently. And also in the first season, it had turned out that her partner had been dirty the whole time. And so now Misty is dealing with all of Scarf's cases blowing up in her face, criminals getting let loose, and people accusing her of being like Scarf, and her not wanting to be like Scarf. And it's really, it's less of like a storyline for the season and more of several very personal journeys that are all really great to watch. Sorry, I rambled through that.
No, that's perfectly all right. Because and like you said, there's not the Mariah Dillard plot line is really kind of the central spine of the story, but then there's also all these ancillary stories that weave in and out of that. And what I really like so far of what I've seen is the show manages to balance all those stories really well. One of the complaints that I had with the Punisher series, which I don't know if I voiced in the episode that me and Brian did on that show, was that the show seemed to kind of lean at points, really far in one direction and kind of forget about other characters, to the point where I think there was one episode where like Frank Castle only had maybe like 10 or 15 minutes of screen time in a given episode, and he didn't really do anything in that episode. But whereas with this film, everybody's not only getting a chance to be in the spotlight, but they're also actually doing stuff to advance their plot lines while they're the focus characters. There's never really any moments where we're focusing on characters just idly sitting by and bullshitting. There's always something going on that's advancing their plot lines and their stories. And I really like the caliber of the character writing that's gone into this series.
To your point, there are no pointless characters in Luke Cage. Every little side character who you think is like, oh, that's just, a guy who runs errands, always becomes important later or has some sort of meaning to the story eventually. Like there's always really good payoff for that sort of thing. One of my favorite payoffs from season 2 was Sugar. And Sugar he's kind of a thug, and he works for the Stokes, and he was in the first season and he's in the second season, and he was never really that big of a deal. And in the second season, he kind of, it's said that Sugar had a kid in between seasons, and now he's sort of more cautious and doesn't want to do as many bad things. And so can he really be trusted by Mariah and Shades? Because, he's got a kid now, and how far is he willing to go? Stuff like that. And Sugar is one of the ones who comes out on top of the season, of all people. This is a guy who's done some really bad shit, and he comes out of it okay. And that's it's incredibly rewarding to just have little mentions of Sugar here, Sugar there, and then Sugar comes out on top when a lot of people don't.
So I guess since you start talking about Sugar, let's start talking about the individual character stories that we really like. And the one that I want to bring up is Bushmaster, who, holy crap, like every minute that this guy is on screen, my eyes are just like locked on him. I'm hard pressed to think of a villain who has fascinated me as much as this guy.
Yeah, and
the actor has just charisma coming out of his pores, man. This guy just sweats screen presence.
it's really funny to me because I looked up that actor whose name I will not be able to think of off the top of my head without Wikipediaing it. But this actor in particular had auditioned.
Mustafa Shakir is his name.
Yes. He had auditioned for M'Baku in Black Panther. And, like, he would have been so great for that role. There's literally not a thing wrong with the guy who plays M'Baku. But, like, after watching this guy, I'm like, oh man, what we could have had is so good. Yeah, Bushmaster is an incredible character. And the way his story arc unfolds, as with many of the villain's story arcs in Luke Cage, happens very slowly but very wonderfully. You see him as, here's a guy, you don't understand his motivations, but he can absolutely kill Luke Cage if he wanted to. He could kill anyone if he wanted to. He's very strong. He gets his power from some sort of
herbs.
It's basically like a combination of herbs that, you know, are very potent, and you don't quite get what his long-term game is, but you know that his motivation is just take down Mariah. And you're like, okay, I kind of agree with this, but I don't like how you're doing it. And then slowly as the episodes go, you unfold a little more of his story, and you see, okay, he's this Jamaican guy, he's got all this, he's part of this Jamaican gang. His motivations slowly become clearer, and then you get his flashback episode, and you're like, oh no, holy crap, this character is so amazing. You get through his flashbacks and you see how his family was so brutally treated, people in his family needlessly murdered, specifically by the Stokes, because the Stokes were just awful. And you think, well, okay, no, but, you know, like Mariah wouldn't have had anything to do with that. And then you see how, you know, young Mariah treated young Bushmaster, and you're like, oh, no. It is so personal for him. And the level that he's willing to take it is really extreme. And he also has Anansi in his life, his uncle, who is telling him, you are taking this too far. And he said, I don't care. Like, it's never going to be good enough until everything she has built has been destroyed. So it's not even like, oh, I want to, you know, like a typical, you know, Marvel villain might want to take over the world or, you know, make a lot of money. And he just wants retribution for a grievous thing that was done to his family. And so you sympathize with him, but you're also in horror of the lengths he's willing to go. But you also recognize that he has a line in the sand that he's not willing to cross. There are things that could be done that would horrify even him. And that balances out so well with Mariah, who is, in the first season, was much more passive, and was letting Cottonmouth do everything. And she's slowly coming into her own, but by the end, you know, she's always wanted to go straight, go clean, do things the right way to make the world a better place, but also keep a lot of power and money for herself. And to watch Mariah spiral out of control into absolute fucking lunacy and really cold murder is such a wonderful contrast to Bushmaster, who, you know, the story humanizes Bushmaster as it goes. So the further in you get, the more you can sympathize and understand Bushmaster, and then to contrast with Mariah, who just becomes less and less human and more monstrous as it goes.
Yeah, and swing back to Bushmaster for one of the things I really like is how he develops as sort of a dark mirror to Luke Cage. The two of them are almost like, it's like almost a Holmes and Moriarty thing, where these are two people who are they come from similar circumstances, but they've developed into they've taken the same set of basically input from the world and come to two very different conclusions. And it's almost like they're dark mirrors of each other, and it even extends to their fighting style. If you pay attention to the times where Luke and Bushmaster go toe to toe, you see that Luke Cage relies very much on like brute strength and raw power. He's very much okay. If one punch and you're out. He's almost like Mike Tyson. This is the boxer in me talking. He's relying on basically one punch to knock his opponent out, whereas Bushmaster's fighting style relies more on speed and lightning strikes. So he kind of hits and runs. So while he's able to get a few good strikes on Luke and eventually wear him down at points, you also see that he's very well aware that if he just gets one good right cross from Luke, that's it. His bell is rung.
Yeah, you're right. They are excellent dark mirrors of each other because their powers work so similarly, and that's sort of an on-purpose Marvel thing, where just their fights are really crazy to watch because Luke is very much he's a boxer kind of type where it's punch, punch, punch. With not a whole lot of variation on that. And then you look at Bushmaster, and Bushmaster's flipping around and doing all these cool moves. And the Bushmaster fights are so amazing to watch. And like the Marvel series on Netflix are known for their fights. Like that's what makes them so cool, because so much of their fighting is hand-to-hand combat. So the fluidity of Bushmaster is like, okay, yeah, woo, we needed this because this is so good.
Okay, so what's another character that you really enjoyed seeing throughout this season?
Well, I've talked a lot about Mariah and her spiral to insanity. But what I really loved about this season was Shades. Shades was one of those villains in the first season where he's another guy who just oozes charisma. He's always got a smirk on his face. And he was one of those in the first season where he was maybe, I don't want to say he wasn't fleshed out, but he was like, you kind of just understood what he was about. And this season, it felt quite a bit more suspenseful because you were waiting for the other shoe to drop. You were waiting for there to be a betrayal. You were waiting to figure out what was really going on with him, or if there was anything different going on with him other than what he just said, because he's such a suspicious character. And you watch the whole thing and people kept questioning him, like, are you really in love with Mariah? Why do you stick by her? And he says, I believe in her. I'm waiting for the right circumstance and everything's going to be fine. And you're just like, there's no way Shades believes any of that. And so we unpack a little bit of Shades, his relationship with Comanche, who was one of his friends that he did time with. That was a really interesting bit to unpack, in which we find out that Shades and Comanche, while they were in prison together, had been together while in prison.
They passed the time.
They passed the time, so to speak, which was a huge shock for me because that fucking came out of left field. And it was really interesting because Comanche, who you would not picture just based on the way he acts, is still kind of hung up on that. And Shades has moved on and is in love with Mariah. He legitimately is in love with Mariah. And he wants good things for her. He wants to move past the crime life that he's had. He wants stability and money. And he's looking for the simplest solution he can. And the simplest solution, as he tells Mariah over and over, is to sell the painting that she has. And sell the painting, keep the club, go legit. And it's really strange. That's why it's so suspicious that Shades, being a very shady character, is so hung up on just doing things legit. And go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as Mariah continues to spiral out of control, Shades becomes more and more the voice of reason.
Which is really weird. Because when we the first time we see Shades in this season, dude's got like a hair trigger. Like his first scene in this season, I don't know if he was I really know if he was in the first season because, like I said, didn't see the first season. But my introduction to Shades was the restaurant scene where the waiter comes up, it's like, "Oh, are you and your aunt celebrating a special occasion?" And you can just see something in his mind just snap. Like, this waiter is not long. This waiter is not long for this world. And the next time we see him, he's just beating the shit out of this guy. So, Shades has got like this hair trigger temper. He just goes nuts at the slightest time anyone talks shit about Mariah. So you're like, okay, this guy's a rabid dog. So for him to become the voice of reason,
it's wild. It's develop. Really wild. And Shades has a line. He has a line in the sand that he's cross. And he kind of crosses the line. Because, and guys, spoiler alert here, but he actually kills Comanche before the end of the season. And he does it in protection, in a very roundabout way to protect Mariah. Because Comanche was snitching on them to the police. And if Comanche had been allowed to live, everybody would have gone to prison. But Shades really wasn't thinking about himself here. He was just thinking about Mariah. He's legitimately in love with Mariah. He loves Mariah. He loves Mariah's potential. He loves her mind, the way she's so very sinister and everything. But there is a point where he has a lot of regrets about what happened with Comanche. I think he comes to a point where he realizes it was probably the wrong thing to do because Mariah is fucking insane. He's with Mariah to the end of the line, but that line is that line in the sand that he drew where there's things he's not willing to do. And his line in the sand is, we're in this life and we chose to be in this life. And there are innocent people who didn't choose to be in this life, and we're not going to involve them because that wasn't their choice. And Mariah crosses the line so hard. You probably didn't get this far. And so here's another big spoiler alert. But Mariah proves her absolute insanity when, to strike back at Bushmaster, they go down to the restaurant that's owned by Anansi, and they kill every single person there, including Anansi. And, Mariah literally sets Anansi on fire and watches him burn. And loves every second of it. And Shades is horrified. He's horrified not only at what has unfolded around him because they were genuinely innocent people, but horrified at what Mariah has become. And that's where, I've always loved Shades. I don't know why. He's just such a smarmy motherfucker that he's really interesting to watch. But you reach a point where you're like, oh no, Shades is going to turn on her. And he does. He turns on her because he can't stand what she's become. And to me, that was such an interesting character journey for Jade. To the point where he was willing to go to the cops to put Mariah behind bars. Well, they were all getting arrested anyway, but he was willing to turn on Mariah. Not just in thinking that Mariah was going to turn on him, but because, holy shit, she's crazy and she's dangerous. And Mariah completely loses her mind and, kills everyone, not just the Jamaicans, but anybody she thought might have said something or snitched in any way, shape, or form. She just offs everyone, including her number one guy, not Shades. I guess that would make this other guy her number two guy. But what was his name? I can't think of his name, but it's her personal assistant. Was the one where you're like, oh damn, she loved that guy so much. That guy was family to her, and she just offed him for no reason. At least when she killed Cottonmouth, it was super personal. It was unbelievably personal for her. And then Mariah just going around mercilessly having everyone else axed is not personal. It is a very fucked up business thing that she's doing. And it really solidified her as one of the best Marvel villains, period. She's such a dream to watch.
I want to talk a bit about Claire, who, of course,
Claire.
Marvel TV series, she has to show up. And I really loved how the relationship between her and Luke is written, because it's written very, very realistically. It's not written like, you know, so many comic book romances are, where they're these two people and it's written in the stars that they will be together. No, these two they love each other, but they have problems and they have personality conflicts, and they both have things that they want to accomplish, and sometimes those goals don't mesh together, and that causes issue. The one real complaint that I have about Claire in this season so far, and I don't know if it's something that gets resolved over the course of the season, but I see her so far in this one aspect as being kind of a repeat of Jessica Jones's sister in the second season of that show, in that I don't know what it is about the secondary female leads in these shows that they keep having to try to push the main characters into doing shit they don't want to do. In Jessica Jones, it was her sister trying to push her into being a superhero, and in this one, it's Claire trying to push Luke to reconcile with his father, who apparently lied to Luke all his life about having a brother, and was tangentially related to Luke's mother getting killed. I don't know, maybe I need to go see the first season to get that, but it's like, you know, Luke has said many times he doesn't want to talk to this guy. You know, at some point, you know, you got to know when to fold him, Claire. And that whole discussion culminates with Luke basically kind of flipping out and punching a hole in.
Ooh, sorry, that was my phone.
Neither one of us has silenced our phones today.
No.
All right. Well, I'll back up a bit. And the whole discussion argument between them about, you know, Claire trying to push Luke to reconcile with his father culminates, at least from what I've seen so far, in Luke basically punching a hole in her wall and realizing, you know, oh shit, this is kind of getting to a boiling point, and I need to get out of this situation before, you know, something happens here and that, you know, I can't take back or that can't be fixed. And it was a moment that was one of those moments where I was actually like rendered speechless, because it's like, you see these two people together and you know that these are two people who really love each other and are really working to make this relationship work. And at this point, you know, with this one moment, everything's been put on a knife edge, and it could go so horribly wrong so horribly quickly.
So for the spoiler part of that, she leaves. She's like, we need to take a break. She's scared. She's legitimately scared. Because she's been in relationships before that haven't gone well. She knows what people can be like when they're angry. She is scared, and maybe not for herself, but she's scared of what Luke is becoming, because as part of Luke's character journey throughout the season, he is starting to buy into his own mythos a little bit. He doesn't really like that he has a reputation, but he learns to see the advantages of it, and he sort of kind of just passively accepts that, hey, this is my life now, and I need to do everything for everybody else, and I don't want that. And so he's got a lot of internal conflict that just he lets out on Claire, and Claire is scared, because here's a guy who could crush her skull, and he's got a lot of internal conflict that he has no seeming desire to work out. And then there's a thing where, you know, if a guy punches a hole in, that is a sign that he can absolutely do the exact same thing to you. So she books it out of there, saying, look, we need to put these things on pause for a little while you get your shit figured out, and while I figure out how I feel about everything that's happening.
And I guess that shifts us over to Luke himself. And one of the things that I find really cool about his character arc, especially in this season, like you mentioned, he's kind of, you know, becoming something that he doesn't necessarily want to be. And what I find kind of interesting is, you know, if you put Daredevil and the Punisher at opposite extremes of how they deal with their worldviews on the world, you know, Matt being, okay, look, violence might be necessary to taking care of things that the law won't handle or that the system necessarily can't fix, but the system that doesn't render the system useless, versus Frank Castle, who's like, fuck the system, I'm just going to blow motherfuckers away. And you've got Luke kind of over the course of the season kind of drifting over towards the Punisher's side, and everyone's like, okay, no, you kind of need to come, you kind of need to come back a little bit because you don't want to go down that path. And Luke himself doesn't want to go down that path, but he's kind of trying to pump the brakes on a speeding train that he doesn't really know how to stop, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting character arc that not many superhero franchises, at least the movies and TV shows, address. Is I never wanted this, but as long as I have it, I want to do it my way, you know. And he's learning throughout the season that his way isn't always right, and it doesn't always work. And he shifts around a little bit in levels of moral ambiguity. Based on, you know, if this is going to solve the problem, then why not do it this way? Why not be above the law or skirt around the law or hurt people if it gets the results we need? And it's also really interesting for him being a relatively normal personality-wise guy to be dealing with fame and people watching his every move and taking pictures of him all the time. That's not always, you know, something that, you know, like an Avengers film isn't going to address something like that. You know, he's watched everywhere he goes. He is the hero of Harlem, so everyone in Harlem knows who he is.
He is.
Yeah, where he
Literally.
is at all times. It's kind of really obnoxious for him. And so he goes through a very interesting personal journey about accepting what you can and can't do and trying to reconcile with his father, who, yeah, that really screwed him over last season. And his dad ends up being a pretty cool character, too. But I do want to talk about Misty, because Misty, to me, also has a very important character journey. Because in the first season, she's a cop. She's like, we have to do things. We're not above the law. And the further she goes into things and the deeper she delves, the more she realizes how much other people have skirted the law. She becomes more jaded by her experiences. She's also very hurt because she lost an arm. And people don't want her to be a cop anymore. Other people treat her differently. They disrespect her quite a bit. They make her feel small. And Misty is a fucking force to be reckoned with. And she actually came out as one of my favorite characters this season because she's trying so hard and she's having a very real struggle. I think that's why we like all of the characters in Luke Cage so much, because you kind of feel like this could have been a real person. Like, this could be somebody for realsies. Where she just has such an interesting struggle, and it's so different from any of the other struggles taking place. It's so down to earth and very personal for her to just trying to like maintain her job and live her life the way she has. And she eventually has to admit that, yeah, I need help. And she gets her cool cyborg arm. Oh, so cool. And kind of like soups up a little bit, you know. She's got some more strength with that really cool arm of hers. So cool. And then she's still skirting that line between I might be willing to do something that's terrible in order to achieve something that will make the world a better place. And she skirts that line and realizes, no, I don't want to cross that line. And then is like, no, maybe I'll quit the police because I don't want to be like Scarf. And then is immediately pulled back in because she's just so damn good at her job. So I really feel like she would be such an excellent addition to the Heroes for Hire, but it's also really useful that she's a cop and continues to be a cop. And her struggle to me was just so good. But she's also there to put Luke in his place because she has less moral ambiguity than he does. Like, her little like teetering that line was immediately like, oh my God, that's stupid. Why would I ever think to do that? That was wrong. And I should take responsibility for it. And so she's kind of there in place of Claire this season to put Luke in his place and tell him, you are being stupid. You need to ask for help. You need to do this and that. And then every time he blows her off, she's always right.
With a little dose of
so much.
With a little dose of I should really take my own advice.
Yeah, just every once in a while. Another really great addition that we have to bring up as well. Danny. I know everyone hates Iron Fist, but he was so good. He's only in a couple episodes, and I don't know that you got that far, but
I haven't gotten that far, definitely. But that's going to be my next question. Is he as because again, for listeners who may not have listened to our review of Iron Fist or the Defenders, I've been very vocal about the fact that I deliberately stopped watching Iron Fist because I just could not stand Danny Rand as a character. So is he as insufferable in this series as he was in his own?
He's really good. Like, Danny in this season has more, like, he's figured out his place and where he needs to be. So he's just sort of like you're having some problems. I'm here to help. What to do? Oh, let's fight some people. Cool. His fights don't look really any better. His fights just have not looked cool pretty much ever. Which I don't know why they fail so hard at making fights look cool. But he's there to offer some good advice to Luke. That's basically, he's just there to be like, look, your chi's all out of whack. Here's what we're going to do. You need to concentrate. You need to think about, your place. You need to think about what it is that you want. And he's basically there to be like a wise sage. And then also to be rich and buy things, like to Tony Stark it up a little bit, like, oh, there's a problem with this building. I guess I'm buying the building. Okay, cool. And so he actually, his like wise sageness is very little, and he actually just comedic element to it, which is really good for his character in particular, because I think so many people were frustrated with him between his own show and the Defenders. Like, Danny was just too much of a, it's too serious, he's too boring. There's so many twos of Danny Rand. And in this one, he just sort of showed up, ate Chinese food, walked around barefoot, and there's a guy selling Luke Cage shirts at Pops's shop. And he just keeps saying stuff, and the guy's like, oh yeah, that would make a great shirt. And then he walks out with one of Luke Cage's shirts. It's so good. I really enjoyed Danny Rand in it.
Okay, alrighty. So we're kind of coming down to close to the end of the episode here. So what were some moments of this season that you especially enjoyed? What were some of the real high points for you in this season?
Oh gosh, there were so many. Everything in the final episode involving whose name I'm totally brain farting on, but it is Mariah's daughter is introduced in this season, who is a character we haven't talked about. Oh shit, I have to Google it. It's really
Tilda?
Tilda! Matilda, yeah, Tilda. I was like, Tia, something. Tilda is brought in. She, you could tell throughout the series that Mariah is using her to make her own image look better, and Tilda kind of buys it, kind of doesn't. But there is a point in which, in the very final episode, in which Tilda realizes that Mariah cannot be stopped, that she's legitimately insane. She's going to kill a lot more people. And that Mariah doesn't trust anybody except Tilda. And Tilda is this sweet girl. She's relatively normal. She really just wants to help people. She's a very good person. She kind of helps Bushmaster for a little while because she feels bad for him, because it's her family, Tilda's own family, that hurt Bushmaster and made him into kind of a monster. And Tilda recognizes that and feels sorry for him and takes care of him. But when it comes down to it, like, Tilda knows what has to be done. And it's an incredibly, I think, strange but wonderful thing to Tilda realize. She kind of knew that Mariah was a monster, but for her to come to the full realization and come to terms with, I'm the only one to stop her, was such a great character moment. Part of what makes Mariah's story so great and this whole season end on such a shocker was Tilda stepping up and doing what no one else had done. I loved another one of my favorite moments loved the reveal about Shades and Comanche's relationship, not only because it's an incredibly progressive thing, but it seemed so out of character for both of them. And then you see the way the actors play it was just really so well done. I loved the fight on the bridge between Luke and Bushmaster was really, really good. There was a couple more moments that actually there was a couple of particularly good moments, especially later, where one of the absolute triumphs of Luke Cage, the show, is having really good music. And I don't know admittedly, I don't know artists that come in and play music, but this season, maybe even more so than last season, they tailored the songs and the song lyrics that were chosen to match scenes. And there's a couple of times where, it is so on point that you wonder if they wrote the song just to match the scene, or if that artist already had written the song or not. But there's a lot of songs about betrayal that happen to play out during scenes, about lying that happen to play out during some scenes. The further you go into the season, the more apropos the music gets. And that is always something to be marveled at. Oh, I said Marvel. Didn't mean that. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I was like, okay, 3, 2, 1, 6, how long it takes. All right. Well, like I said, I've only gotten maybe a third of the way through the series. But I'm gonna say the moments that really stand out for me so far, basically any moment that Bushmaster is on screen.
He's so good.
I think he's gearing up to be my favorite character in this season, because, like I said, just the actor's performance, again, I just got to pay my respects, man. The actor he sweats charisma out of every pore. Like, every scene that he appears in, he just dominates. Yeah,
he owned so much of this season.
And I can't wait to see more of what happens with him. So yeah.
Ooh, I do want to give you a spoiler. Bushmaster is a villain that he makes it.
Okay, you're to say again, because you cut out for a moment, which we could take as a sign that you're not supposed to give me the spoiler. I guess.
No, it's a spoiler, but it's a good spoiler. That Bushmaster is one of the Cage villains, major villains, who is a match toe-to-toe for Luke, who survived his season.
Oh, so maybe we'll get to see more of him next season.
That's the hope! I wish.
All right. Well, anyway, that's about all the time that we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. So we'll just wrap it up by saying how badly do people need to see this season, Kat?
So badly. You should actually, though, be a normal person and watch season 1 and then watch season 2, so you understand who Cottonmouth and all the other characters are, and why his dad, and all kinds of other stuff. But I know I need to catch up. It's such a wonderful addition to the lineup. It's a very good, strong second season, which we don't always get out of these shows. It's immensely watchable. Again, it hits all the hallmarks that I wanted out of a season of Luke Cage. It just has spectacular villains, spectacular music, good rock'em sock'em robot fights. It is everything you could want, with a lot of good intrigue as well. And it has a really nice balance of humor. And if you don't believe me, then you haven't seen an episode of Piranha yet, because Piranha is hilarious. And it balances everything out so well. Again, it's really amazing to see a show where there are no pointless characters. There's no wasted dialogue, no wasted scenes. Everything has purpose. And I think that's actually kind of one of the themes of the show is having purpose and knowing what your purpose is and what it isn't. And, it's so good, guys. You got to watch it.
All right. Well, that's about all the time we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. We will see you next time. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the Cat.
We'll see you next week. Taka, play us out.
Wow, it was so good, though. So good.